Hi, I'm Loren. My company is Intentional Acting, and we're hired by working actors who keep getting passed over and they don't know why. And what they want is to book work now and build a reputation of being an in-demand actor. So if that's you, let me know how I can help you. Is that I am giving you technique that's going to help you book work now and build a reputation of being an in-demand actor. And I started last week with a question called, where does this take place? Right? The big old where. A really important question. And you see, I think good technique is based in really good questions, because we as actors have to read a script and ask questions, not of just the casting director, but of the script, to get the facts and to get the information, because that's what tells us what to do, and acting is doing. But what I found as I started teaching and directing is that most actors ask themselves the wrong questions. Like, who am I? What's my backstory? Yeah, those are two questions that I don't think they're strong. They're not specific enough to help you. Okay? So instead, because we're not creating a backstory, you're creating a present story. So how do we make this story present? So one of the questions that that I love, it's from my 9 questions of intentional acting, is what are the relationships? Now, some of you, like I just said, might say, well, who am I? And what are the relationships? I think is a better question. In fact, I know it's a better question. It's a lot more specific. It's going to find a lot more story for you. And it's going to help you in your scene work because it builds a relationship to you and the reader, or the person that you're in the scene with. Okay? Because when I think of what is my relationship, it also tells me how to behave and what to do. Okay? The example that I often use is how I behave with my son is going to be different than how I behave teaching in a class as a teacher, or coaching a client, or even being a friend to with my girlfriends, right? But in a professional atmosphere, I'm going to be polite, calm, cheery, assertive with what I need to talk about, very clear, very calm. And then when I go in the other room and I discover that my son is playing video games and he wasn't supposed to, I might not be so calm. I might not be so clear. I might not be so rational and polite, So so how I behave is determined on my relationship. Acting is behaving because how I behave is based on what I do. All right? So, what are the relationships is a really great question, and you can answer it so fast, and you can find so many and it will get you into the scene pretty quickly. Okay, so let me use an example. There's a script that I use a lot. It's an old script from the TV show Scorpion. It's about a hospital tech. It's a hospital tech is the role that you're auditioning for. Okay, and this hospital tech is in a scene with the characters of Toby, and Toby has also brought a colleague with him, and someone who is, we'll call them the patient. They're the patient in the MRI machine, all right? And Toby has worked at this hospital before, but when the last time he was here, he did a Super Bowl pool, which is great. We have Super Bowl, go Rams. Oh, for some of you might not know what Super Bowl is. We have a Super Bowl game this week, and a pool is when you pool all your money together to make a bet. So Toby ran this pool with a bunch of employees at the hospital, and the hospital tech was one of them, pooled all their money together, and then took that money and gambled it away and lost all their money. And now he lost his job, he lost his privileges at the hospital, and now he's come back. And the hospital tech's actually the script says annoyed, and that the hospital tech's annoyed because they have to provide this service to Toby and the patient, and of doing an MRI, and they're annoyed. They don't want to do that, right? So when I ask most of my students, I'll say, or not necessarily my students or people that I'm working with, I'll say, so what are the relationships in the scene? And usually their answer will be, I am the hospital tech and I'm really pissed off at Toby because he ripped me off. And then I say, that's not the relationship. What's the relationship? The relationship with Toby is they used to work together and they no longer do, right? That's their relationship. Like my relationship to my son, mother, son. My relationship to you. At this point, I'm a virtual teacher teaching you a class, or I'm just a lady on the screen. Or to my mother. That's my Loren mother. Or a colleague that we both, like Wendy to me is we are colleagues, right? So how I behave in each of those relationships is different. So start with the fact of what is the relationship, the factual relationship. All right? And then the other thing is there's not just one relationship in this scene. There are other relationships. There's the colleague, like how I relate to, if I'm the hospital tech, how I relate to Toby, and then how I behave when their friend is in the room or their colleague is in the room. How I behave when there are people watching me is going to be different than how I behave alone with somebody. And I might be, and that's why it says annoyed is what I think, is I think that, does this person really have permission to go tell me, hey, get me my money back? And what do you mean, you rat? And da-da-da-da-da-da. I might not talk to somebody, A, in a professional atmosphere, and B, with their friend there, and a client or a patient, right? So how I behave is predicated on the other people in the room. And I don't want you to stop there, because I actually think there are more relationships than just the hospital tech to Toby, the hospital tech to Toby's colleague, and hospital tech to the patient in the MRI. And exactly how I'm going to treat all of them is different. I'm not going to be annoyed and rude to the patient who's in the MRI machine because they haven't done anything wrong. Toby's the one who did something wrong, okay? But there are also more relationships. What are the other relationships? Well, my role says I'm a hospital tech. So if I'm a hospital tech, that means I work for somebody. I'm just a technician. I just show up here and do my 9-to-5 thing and go home. And that means there's other employees and other people that I work with. And there's also a boss, okay? So if somebody ripped me off, I don't know about you, but if I knew that you'd stolen money from me, there's no way I'm now going to provide a service to you, right? Would you do that? No. But if I work for somebody and my boss says, hey, Loren, you've got to provide that service. I'm like, but he ripped us off. He ripped me off. Too bad, Loren. You still got to provide the service. That's going to make me annoyed, right? And so that's another relationship to think about. What if my boss finds out that I'm telling Toby off? What if I'm trying to keep my mouth shut and I can't? What's going on? There's all that story. All of a sudden by building out what are the relationships, now I'm building out the story. And I have so much more to do in the scene and to think about and to experience, and that will draw me into the scene and get me into character. And let's not stop there. I think there's another relationship in this scene. So I have my boss, I have Toby, Toby's colleague, and then the patient. But then I have the other employees, because one of my lines is, you ripped us off, right? So if there's other employees and I'm at a place of work, it's very possible that somebody they go, is Toby here? Are you going to get our money back? Remember when he stole that money from us? Are you going to get that back? It's very possible. Or I could even be walking out and there could be 10 people waiting for me. Did you get it? What did he say? Did you tell him off? Right? So that pressure. So there's a whole nother group of relationships that's affecting me in this scene. All right? So whereas if I just said, who am I? I'm a hospital tech. I work in a hospital and I can go think about what I had for breakfast and all that stuff. That's not really present to the story. And that also is, it's not about these relationships. It's not telling me how to behave in this scene in the way that these relationships dictate it. And there also, it's much more intuitive. Like, if I just think about my mom and how I behave around my mom, it's going to be so different than if I think about Wendy and how I'm going to talk to Wendy. It's just intuitive. I know how to behave. And that's what you want. That's technique. When you can ask yourself a good question and it tells you what to do in the scene as an actor. That's technique. So happy Technique Tuesday. Let me know how what are the relationships is helping you in your scene work. And next week, I'll give you some more great questions. Okay?